Pokémon theories are as much a part of life as breathing or complaining online about the state of modern Pokémon games while playing every single one of them anyway. But some of those Pokémon theories are not founded on a lot. So hey, I'm Not So Ace Trainer, and today we'll look at 3 very popular Pokémon theories and try to debunk them, because there hasn't been a lot going on in terms of Pokémon news as of late. Let's get into it. Before we continue, I want to thank my YouTube member Dash Plays and my Twitch subscribers Anubis Here, Retsamnegi, Zanes222 and Nightshades. Thank you so much for going the extra mile and helping make my content possible. And now, on to the video. Let's start with the easiest one to debunk. The theory that the reason we find so many children and so little male adults in Kanto is because of the Great Pokémon War, the same that Lieutenant Surge was a part of, wiping away most of them, leaving only children, women and the elder. Well, it took me about 5 minutes to find out that the basis for this whole thing is just wrong. Reddit user L285 compiled the number of each of those different categories of people, finding out that adult males actually have the highest percentage in Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue. I was ready to offer a counter theory, but here I believe there's no theory at all, so let's try to find something tougher. Time to look at the classic. The Pokemon that were revived by Ho-Oh when the fire took down the Brass Tower were Eeveelutions, more specifically Jolteon, Flareon and Vaporeon. This is based on the similarities in the abilities of these Pokemon and Raikos, Entei and Suicunes, and also on the clear evolution culture in Ecruteak City with the Kimono Girls. Also remember that Walking Wake, Gouging Fire and Raging Bolt are simply from a different timeline. There's nothing telling us that they are how Suicune, Raikou and Entei used to be. There are many ways to die in a fire, but every single piece of media seems to imply that the Pokemon died by being burned, especially with Ho-Oh's theme of rising from the ashes and the phoenix and all that. So you're telling me that Flareon, a fire-type Pokemon that cannot be burned, died by being burned? Nah, that makes no sense. And so, here's what probably happened. Ecruteak City has a culture that honors evolutions, with the Kimono Girls having these Pokemon with them and them being a key part of their performances. These Pokemon are extremely rare and obtained only by evolving Eevee, another pretty rare Pokemon. Still, unlike its evolutions, who all possess some kind of elemental power, everything that Eevee has is a highly unstable DNA, and because of that, they could get burned pretty bad. We also know that the Pokemon that came alive on that night, Raikou, Entei and Suicune, all embody a different elemental power associated with the destruction of the tower. Kinda like Jolteon, Flareon and Vaporeon embody the different elemental powers of their respective stones. What would happen if, instead of being exposed to the contained powers of those stones, the life energy of an Eevee, disappearing into the world, was exposed to the incredibly powerful life-giving powers of Ho-Oh's Sacred Ash, while so many different energies were raging around them? Raikou is said to come down with lightning, almost as if lightning gives birth to this Pokemon. Entei are born every time a new volcano appears, as if fire's or magma's elemental power brings it alive. Suicune doesn't have such a straight-up "this Pokemon is born because of this" Pokédex entry, but it is the embodiment of north winds and pure waters, so it also fits. And so, since Flareon cannot be burned, it makes a lot more sense for the 3 Pokemon that perished in the Brass Tower's fire to have been 3 Eevee instead of 3 Eeveelutions. Their unstable DNA paired with so much elemental power going around at that moment, basically evolution stones on steroids, and also the fact that they can be hurt by flames and also keep a connection to Ecruteak City, makes them the best choice for this. And now for a final one. Ditto is a Failed Mew Clone. What? So this theory is based on a few things. Ditto and Mew weigh the same, they have similar shiny forms, and they are the only Pokemon capable of naturally having transform. Early on, this Pokemon also seems to be found in a few places related to Mewtwo, at least in Pokemon Yellow. There it can be found in the Pokemon Mansion and Cerulean Cave exclusively, but in Red and Blue, well, that changes to the Cerulean Cave, plus Route 13, Route 14, Route 15 and even Route 23. In other games, it is mostly found in places that have no connection to Mewtwo, besides in remakes, but even then, it is still found in other routes. By taking away the quote-unquote location evidence for Ditto, which isn't really a lot of evidence at all, we can clearly see the theory losing a bit of power. Then we go to their shiny forms, and yeah, they're both blue, but they're not even the same blue, and that starts to look a bit like a stretch as well. But the fact alone that we have a source of never-ending Dittos in the wild tells us that Team Rocket is either still making them and putting them in every single region, or they're not failed clones at all. with Ditto likely being based on an amoeba, of which there are fossils dating to 400 million years ago. One could say that Ditto just reproduces like them, through meiosis, which is basically cell division. Still, there is no evidence that suggests this, with Ditto simply being a rare Pokémon that is unable to breed. The other part though, the 400 million year ago fossil part, makes a lot more sense here. Ditto likely has similar DNA to Mew, the other Pokémon that can use Transform, the DNA of everything before everything even existed. I think it makes sense that both Pokémon are actually very ancient, from way back when life energy wasn't really organized the way it is today. Mew was created and then Ditto followed, or the other way around, since Mew seems to be a more complex form of Ditto, a more evolved form. A form capable of actually populating the Pokémon world, unlike Ditto, which stayed in the shadows, and that's maybe the reason why we have more Ditto today than we have Mew. But if you still want to connect them to Team Rocket and Mewtwo somehow, because of the Pokémon mentioned for example, here we go. Mew, like I said, is rare. A Pokémon that is incredibly hard to find. Researchers could have found that Ditto was a close match, albeit a less powerful or evolved one, and started using them in their experiments, not as a byproduct of attempting to clone Mew, but actually as the source to clone Mew from, by using the DNA in Ditto. That's why you find them in the Pokémon Mansion Lab, and the reason you find them in the Cerulean Cave and Pokémon Village is not because of Mewtwo's presence, but also the same reason why you find them in the Great Chasm or why you only find them with a Pokéradar in Sinnoh. Ditto don't want to be found. They're rare, they hide and they try to go to places where people will have a harder time finding them. Either because they're hard to reach, or because there's something powerful nearby that scares some of the threats, if not most of them, away. And that is all I have for you today. There was no population wipeout in the Great Pokémon War, the Legendary Beasts were not Eeveelutions, and Ditto is not a failed clone of Mew. But what about you? Do you have any other theories? Let me know in the comments down below. And now, like the video if you like it, dislike if you don't, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon content and also ring the bell so you know when the next video is out. Also, you can become a channel member or check out my merch in order to further support the channel. I'd be forever thankful for that. You can follow me on social media or check out one of my streams here and on Twitch. All the links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.